Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, for your second upload, I have some even more terrifying encounters to share with you. Before we get into those encounters, though, as you know, I rely on my Patreon and my PayPal and the merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. New merch is out, Dogman logo and catchphrase hoodies, tees, and long sleeve tees with "Shall We" on them and the logo. Just go to the home page and go to the store and show some support. Also, the links are in the description. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny, is available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links are also in the description. Now, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's first part of the upload. I'm not sure whether I should classify this as a ghost story or a monster story, but in my mind, what happened in my life seems paranormal. I'll start telling one of the scariest things I've ever heard in my life. I was 14 years old at the time. I lived in my grandparents' old house with my parents, my 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and cousin Braden. Braden's parents didn't take care of him very well his whole life, so he was somewhat troubled, but still a pretty normal kid like the rest of us. He was a year younger than me, so I guess we could say we were the same age. He was living with us for only a short time, about 4 months. My father had a really important job as a leader of our small community, so he and my mother were always away for business trips. One night, while the parents were away on a trip, we never had babysitters since my sister was 17, we all decided we would drink alcohol, since it was new and exciting at the time. My older brother and sister invited a few of their friends over and got one of them to buy us all booze. The night had just started, and we were all in the basement. Suddenly, Braden came racing downstairs. He wasn't into the drinking. He was in tears, completely terrified. We all stopped to ask him what was wrong. His story went something like this. He claimed he was upstairs minding his own business. He went to the kitchen to grab a cup of water, but something caught his eye outside. Thinking it was an animal, a bear, moose, deer, and coyote are common in our area, he put his face and hands on the glass to get a better look at the dark outdoors. Looking towards the bushes, he claimed he saw something that literally changed him. He saw a figure of what looked like an animal almost, but much worse. The first word he used to describe this thing was ugly. He said it was ugly with large, piercing red eyes. Not glowing red, but dark red, he said. He said it was staring at him, like it knew it was scaring him. He backed away from the window slowly, but still kept eye contact with the creature. He said it turned its head sideways, like a kitten would, almost playful. And then it smiled at him. He said it was absolutely terrifying. This was nothing he'd ever seen before. And it smiled with large teeth. He said the teeth were yellow and all pointed. At that point, he lost control and tears filled his eyes, and he ran to the basement, but demanded none of us look outside. Everyone, being buzzed and feeling brave, went upstairs and checked out the windows and doors. One of our friends even went outside to look. There was nothing there. No scary animal, no ghost, nothing. Thinking he had lost his mind, everyone shrugged it off except me. Braden finally got the nerve to go back upstairs. I accompanied him to the upstairs bedroom and stayed there until he fell asleep. I was really scared, and I truly believed him. To this day, I still get chills thinking about it and wondering why it only came to see him. Today's second encounter. I've always heard about Helen's Bridge since I was a kid. There used to be a big castle on the side of the mountain, and in it lived Helen and her daughter. One night the castle caught fire and killed Helen's daughter. Helen was so upset about her poor daughter, she hung herself from the bridge that leads to the castle. Now it's called Helen's Bridge. It is said that if you go up to Helen's Bridge and call her name 3 times, she will appear or make herself known. As if you stop your car and turn it off underneath the bridge, the car won't start again when you go to leave. So, here's my story. Myself, my cousin Haley, and our friend Tyler decided to go up to Helen's Bridge one night. None of us had ever been before. We had heard the stories, so we were curious. We went up the mountain and parked the car across the street from where you walk up to the bridge. You have to walk through what looks like a field and through a gate to get to the bridge. Once we got there, myself and Haley were freaked out because we had to walk through a creepy dark field, and we knew eventually we'd have to walk back. Tyler, being a guy, was acting all tough and started calling Helen's name. So there we are, Haley and myself are freaking out. Tyler wanted a cigarette and had forgotten the lighter at the car. So he told me and Haley he'd be right back. So Haley and myself were by ourselves, and we could hear Tyler walking through the bush. He's a pretty big boy, so we could hear him easily. We heard the car door open and close, and we heard Tyler start walking back. Then he stopped suddenly. We heard the bushes behind us moving and something walking towards us coming from the opposite direction. You could tell whatever was walking on 2 legs. It sounded large. We got scared and started yelling for Tyler, telling him there was something behind us in the woods, and that he couldn't just leave us. He had to come back. We heard him a little ways off say that he had seen something walking towards us, and that's why he stopped walking. Whatever that had been walking through the woods was very close behind us, and all of a sudden, it stopped walking, and was being very still, very close to us. Tyler started running and yelling toward us, thinking that it would scare it away. When he got to us, we clung on to him, and he walked us out of the field back to the car. When we got to the car, we sat in it with the lights pointed toward the bridge to see if we could see whatever it was. Tyler said whatever he saw was big with black hair or fur, walking on 2 legs, about 4 feet high. It had walked about 20 feet in front of him. We never saw what it was, and we never went back to Helen's Bridge. By the way, guys, Helen's Bridge is in Asheville, North Carolina, if you'd like to check out the story. Today's 3rd encounter. First, I've got to state that this is a true account of something that actually did happen. If you happen to see this in a movie or maybe a book some years from now, it's because I am a screenwriter. Jamie, Lawrence, Billy, and John, if you guys happen to hear or see this, make a comment and say hi. It's been too many years. The year was 82 or 83. We were all about 12 years old. Transformers, the toys and cartoon, were big at the time, and we were on our way to the local mall to buy some. As it was Friday, and we had just gotten our allowances for the week, and had been saving toward the toys we wanted. It was summer and late evening as we made our lazy way back from the mall, taking the side streets and talking and BSing each other as boys will do. At the time, we really didn't know what street we were on, but you know how it is. You kind of know your area and what direction home is. It's a rather short street in a nice upper middle class area, and has a small parkette right in the middle of the street. I now find this rather odd, as most parkettes are in open areas, not right in the middle of a tiny, sleepy little street. All parks in the city of Toronto have water fountains, and this one did as well. Having spent all of our cash on toys, and after a long walk, almost an hour each way, we were thirsty. And having come across this park that none of us knew, the fountain and cold water it could provide, we stopped to have a drink. I can't remember how many of us had a drink before someone, I think it was Billy, said, "What is that?" We all looked to where he was facing. He was frozen, bent over the fountain, looking into the park. What we saw and what happened after still haunts me to this day. I just turned 40 this year. It was big, like the size of a pony. The best way I can say it looked was a cross between a cat and a wolf. Jet black with dark red eyes, and it almost looked like it was smiling, like the way a happy cat would bare its teeth a bit when you're stroking it. It wasn't touching the ground, but it looked to be a bit above it, not floating, as it did look to be solidly planted on 4 legs. All this was scary enough, but what really drove the spike of fear into my heart was the way it moved when it started to come toward us. Sly, slow, and easy, almost kindly, like it wanted you to touch it, like it wanted to play. I don't know who it was that screamed, "Run!" was all they said, and run we did. Ran toward where I lived, to home and safety. Ran till our lungs burned and our legs hurt. We were almost back to the area we lived in when I looked back, and it was still coming. And right when I looked back, it stopped. It was too far to tell if it was looking at me, but it swung its head real fast to the right. Was like that for a few seconds and dove right through the front wall of a house. Just passed right through, like a creature was nothing but air. We kept going a short way until we got to the well-lit area and stores and people. This was also where we lived. We had hoped it was gone, but stayed where we were for about 2 hours talking about what had happened, sharing unspoken fear of going home in case it might follow and know where we lived. Sometime after, I'm not sure how long, we heard the wail of sirens, many fire trucks and police cars on the next street over, the street where we lost it. After a lot of debate and some tears, we went to see what was going on. We had to. Yes, it was the house they had been called to. We saw paramedics bringing out an old man on a stretcher. They were in no rush. He was long gone. A fireman came out just after, and he was carrying something. He showed this to the police and then another fireman. I heard the words gas pipe, and he didn't stand a chance. The other fireman said, "What's that?" The pipe that he was holding had 4 ragged slashes that looked both ripped and almost melted at the same time. They looked like claw marks. The old man had a dog, and I guess that it might have been in the backyard, and the police officer was bringing it around to the front of the house. When they went to the front, the dog bolted right for the spot where it had entered the wall of the house. It bit and clawed at that spot so violently that the poor dog pulled out some of the claw and was leaving bloody paw marks all over the wall. I couldn't take any more. I was shaking, dizzy, and felt like I was going to throw up. I just turned and walked away. John was beside me and grabbed my hand. He was shaking too. We all went home without saying a word and never talked about what happened ever again. I have never, and by the grace of God, and I am not overly religious person, hope to never see or anything like this thing in my life. Today's 4th part of the upload. The following encounter happened a few months ago to me and some of my friends. We are still scared and don't know what it was. Some of us think it was the Dogman. We were visiting one of my friends, Sarah, just having fun laughing and talking, the usual. It was getting late. Nicole decided to go home. We walked her out as usual. Sarah and I were still joking when all of a sudden we heard something in the field in front of her house. We looked and saw a large black shadow sitting a few feet away. It was looking straight at us. I got up and we just ran into the house, locking everything and sitting in the dark listening. The thing was twice our size and bulky. We were petrified. Nothing happened until my boyfriend came to pick me up. As we're driving away, I look over to the field and heard the most evilest growl ever. No dog can make a sound like that. Never heard a thing like that before. My boyfriend just said, "It's a dog." He doesn't believe in supernatural stuff. Best way to describe it, it's like when you take food away from your dog 100 times 1,000. Later we discussed it, and most believed it to be a Dogman. We looked at the field a couple of times after that, but didn't see anything for a few weeks. One night, a few friends were over at my place and we were watching DVDs. We were laughing at something funny when we all heard this growl again. All of the friends heard it as well and went quiet. It sounded like it was in the door. My one friend went out and saw nothing. We didn't sleep that night and no one wanted to leave. We heard something jump on the roof early in the morning. We looked out of the windows but did not see anything. Only had one more experience. It was about 3 a.m. and I was outside with my dog. She didn't want to do her business, just wanted to run inside. She looked scared, and I didn't think much of it at the time. Just as I was about to go inside, there was another growl. It felt like it was going to attack me. As I turned around, I jumped against the fence, bracing myself for impact. But nothing happened. I was so scared and still am. Haven't seen or heard anything for a few months and hope it stays that way. My brother and his friends also had an experience while doing some stuff off-road biking late one night. They stopped to drink some water. He said everything went quiet, no animals made a sound. Then they heard a growl as well. They saw the thing a few yards away, standing on 2 legs. It was really big, twice the size. In height, and it was muscular. They got on their bikes and never looked back. Today's 5th encounter. It was Thanksgiving, the usual time my parents and family go up to North Carolina. I remember the night before my uncle had called my mother about some strange occurrence about a giant coyote taking dogs. I was scared about what if it grabs Walker or my brother, who was 5 at the time. I was honestly terrified. It was a 12-hour drive. When we arrived, we went over to our uncle's house. His neighbors set up a fire and then told us about how their hound, Fudge, went missing. The collar was ripped off and on the ground. I was glad we didn't bring our dogs. After the neighbors went home around 12 in the morning, I went outside to call my friend and then heard a horrible screeching howl coming from the woods down at the end of my uncle's dirt driveway. I heard all these weird pack noises and growls. I raced back up to the deck, and one of my uncle's dogs ran to the fence and started growling at the woods. Then this giant dog snapped at the metal fence, and I covered my mouth and stood still. I dropped my phone, and all I could think was, this thing is going to maul me. Then this giant coyote lifted its head and looked at me and growled. I opened the door and locked it. After an hour, I went outside, and the wooden framed gate was scratched and damaged. The dogs were terrified and hidden in their houses outside of the fence. I tried telling my family, but everyone laughed, saying how there's no coyotes going to attack you, but my uncle looked at me with wide eyes as if I had some $1 million diamond. I told him what happened, and he called his friend, and ever since then, he has a shotgun outside. Also, his neighbor's dog was found bruised and horribly bitten. Now, when you go to North Carolina, I advise you to stay away from the woods. This is an actual incident, and there are many more gruesome ones about this mysterious coyote. Most believe he is the devil on earth. I'm a lucky girl not to be mauled when I saw this demon-eyed coyote, or even if it is an animal. Today's 5th encounter. When I was between 10 and 11 years old, my family was going through an extremely rough patch. My parents were breaking up, and life really wasn't a happy time for anyone. I remember the last night my parents were together, a terrible fight broke out. Pots were thrown, screams and cries echoed through the house, and what seemed like the longest night of my life at the time. I walked into the room that my parents were fighting and crying and begging them to stop. They did, and after some cuddles and stuff, we all went to bed. The next morning, I remember it was a bright day, sunlight streaming through the window in the front of my bunk bed, which was shared by me and my older sister. I woke up alone. I believe my sister was asleep at the time, as she didn't see what I saw. But as my head raised, I looked to my left toward the window. Standing not 30 centimeters from my face was the face of a big, black, wolf-like dog with glowing red eyes. We stared at each other for a good 5 seconds or so before I got too scared and shoved my face down into the pillow, wishing it to leave. At the time, it scared the shot out of me. However, the more I look into it, the less scared I become. I relate myself to a dog quite a bit, though. I used to pretend to be a dog when I was younger. They were my favorite animals. The black dog with the red eyes and fiery breath has been listed throughout the world in folklore and tales. Generally, it's related to death. Either Cerberus, the guard of the underworld, or the Hound of Baskerville, or Anubis, the Egyptian god, or Satan, if you speak to Christians. And it may very well do, but then it may also represent a death, maybe not a physical. The night before I saw the dog was the last night my parents were together. Ever since, I have been fascinated with the origin of sightings. I'm not sure what all is this worth, but I'd love to know if more people had seen this dog or know a little more about it. A couple days ago, I shared this encounter, and the person that it happened to decided to kind of not really edit, but add some more or discuss more after comments and stuff like that. So what I'll do is I'll narrate the original encounter and then share what he put after the fact. You'll remember and recognize the encounter, I'm sure. Hello, everyone. I spent many days and years out on Hospital Road, as my best friend lived there when we were 11 until now. I'm currently 30 years old, and I guarantee that this Bray Road beast is very real. I can't talk about it without tears coming to my eyes. First, I will tell you that I really didn't believe in anything like this, but this baby is a real deal. Okay, there were 3 of us camping, and we started a small fire, suddenly realizing that we needed a couple of chairs. At this point, 2 of us left on the tractor with the trailer to make the long trek back to the house to grab some chairs and other things needed for camping. On our way back, we encountered our good friend, Pale White, running with everything he had to get somewhere safe. He told us there was something like a werewolf out there, and there was no way he was ever going back out there, nor was he coming back here. The farm boy who we were with just laughed because he didn't believe in this type of thing as well. The 2 of us went out there to the campsite, only for a split second. Right away, the howling began. I can't believe what I was hearing, but as the howling got closer, I caught a glimpse of what was out there with my spotlight and totally freaked out. I started my dirt bike, and the big farm boy friend was screaming, "You can't leave me here!" He jumped on the tractor, and I have never rode so fast in my life across a fully tilled field without caring about anything but getting away. He was so mad and scared at the same time, because the tractor was not nearly as fast as the dirt bike. But at this point, I'm saving my own ass. It's true, it stands on its hind legs and is vicious as hell looking, and its howl is something so scary sounding that it's unimaginable to say the least. I'll never go back out there, not even with a gun. This next part is the add-on where he discusses and comments on comments. I would like to comment on the werewolf/dogman I saw in my friend's field while camping off of Hospital Road. I will assure you that this creature is as real as it gets. Let's put it this way. If I were to get a flat tire anywhere near there, I would drive to town, and I am now turning 31 years old. I was the one that made the statement above, and I'm telling you, I never thought that I would believe in this type of thing. But I will say, what I saw was completely unforgettable. It will be permanently etched into my mind and the two friends' minds of my life. My daughter asks me all the time what it was, and all I can tell her is that there is such a thing as the so-called werewolf. My wife still says that it can't be real, but she sees the tears run down my face when I talk about it. Just typing this is hard for me. It gives me goosebumps, and my hair stands on end. I can't make you a believer, but if you have enough guts to go for a walk around out there at night, you must have balls of steel, to say the least. I would encourage anyone that is into this type of stuff to make the trip by plane, bus, boat, or whatever means necessary to investigate. The Bray Road sightings, it may become well worth your time. I promise, if you do get an encounter, you won't know what to do with yourself when it happens. To us, it was like time stopped. You just don't know how you will react when and if something of this nature happens to you. If there are still folk out there that don't believe in this, I'm sorry, but you just don't understand how wrong you really are. Alright guys, part 2 of terrifying encounters for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed these, because I really did. And I want to apologize once again. I was exhausted when I recorded the first one. I started out pretty good, but I got rough as time went by, so I apologize, everyone. That's about it, and thank you. Oh yeah. Check out the merch store, guys. I'm serious. You're going to love the stuff. See ya!